So when was your country last invaded and by who? You might notice a theme here. So first of all, the good news is more than likely your country was last invaded over 50 years ago. Considering the continent of Europe, those are pretty good numbers. And remember, Europe loves to start wars that include the entire world. So the vast majority of these countries were last invaded during World War II. So France, Belgium, Luxembourg, these are the no-no Germans that were invading them. Literally the same story for Poland, that is the Germans' fault. Same for Denmark, and same for Norway. Again, the vast majority of these have to do with World War II. If you see the 1940s, it's because of World War II. But for the case of Italy, they were on the Axis side. These were allied invasions by the UK or the USA. Luckily for Turkey, though, they stayed neutral for most of World War II, only joining at the very end. The last time they were invaded was 1919, just after World War I. And that goes for a lot of these countries like Armenia and Azerbaijan. Now, obviously, the color you don't want to see here is this like dark maroon, I guess. Georgia was invaded by Russia in 2008, and then we all know about the situation in Ukraine in 2022. Russia just had to update their number because the Ukrainians actually entered into Russian territory in 2024. Before that, I'm guessing the last time they were invaded was World War II. Literally textbook definition from the Ukrainians, frick around, then find out. Now, unfortunately, if your nation's in the Visegrad group or Central Europe, these numbers are a little bit different than all their neighbors. These are not the 1940s, these are the 1960s, and that is because these are Russian or former Soviet invasions when Europe was still behind the Iron Curtain. Now, this actually has Hungary just invaded by the USSR, but Slovakia and Czechia invaded by the entire Warsaw Pact. That is definitely a lot more than just the USSR. I mean, just the USSR is bad enough, but, you know, then Czechoslovakia had to deal with everybody else. All the outliers here, the countries that have dates outside of 1939 or the 1940s, those are a bit more interesting. However, out of all the 1940s, Iceland's got to take the cake. This was a neutral nation, of course, during World War II, but they were invaded by the UK. Obviously, Iceland was not a part of the Axis. It was a technical invasion. The British Empire was afraid that the no-no Germans were about to invade there, so they had to invade them first. It was after the Germans took over Denmark, took over Norway. For the most part, Iceland was kind of down for it. I think they would rather that than the Germans come. Okay, but outside of World War II, the last time the Swiss were invaded is 1798. They haven't always been neutral. Sometimes they were forced to join a fight. That was by the French. That, of course, was during the whole French Revolution time period. The Swedes, who were also pretty neutral, last time they were invaded was 1808, which I'm trying to remember by who. I keep forgetting that I have literally the answers down here. That was by Russia, way after the Great Northern War, too. Both the Iberian brothers got some interesting numbers here. Portugal was invaded in 1961, and that was by India. That's technically because the Portuguese had a colony in South Asia, and the Indians were like, yo, get out. Kind of a similar story for Spain and Morocco, although Spain still technically has enclaves in Morocco. It's like the British got the Rock of Gibraltar. Cyprus was invaded last time in 1974. That was by Turkey. That is why we have the Cyprus crisis. Kazakhstan in 1847. Then for the Irish, last time they were invaded 1649 by, well, you guessed it. That shouldn't be shocking.